SBRPick.com. It's time for some Week 7 NFL talk on Thursday, October 22nd, 2020. We are time, and it's here to bring the pain. Now, Kyle, we got a lot of moving parts going on Sunday. Some games that were supposed to be in prime time, now not going to be in prime time. But this is what we're here for, to talk about it, go over the games, get you guys ready for Sunday afternoon NFL action. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance, and we are SportsBookReview.com. It's time to get down to business. Tuesday's show went well, but a lot of moving parts here, Kyle, during the week, specifically with that Las Vegas Raiders game.
Yeah, it looks like that's been flexed to the afternoon, and they've moved that Arizona-Seattle game to primetime, and that's really just to protect the primetime spot. The Raiders-Bucks game is one we're going to have to keep an eye on. We don't know for sure if that game is going to be played. Right now, it looks like it will be, but a few more tests, and it could be different. So right now, if you're betting that game, I would hold off and wait until Saturday till you have real confirmation, because it looks a little hairy. But, hey, at least the NFL and sports in general, they're doing things that we haven't seen them do before. They're being flexible. They're going with the punches. I like the idea of moving that Arizona-Seattle game to primetime just so that we have that Sunday night game, you know? So if everything goes wrong Sunday afternoon and Sunday morning, at least we have that Sunday night game to pick us all up. So it's smart by the NFL. I actually appreciate that they're being so flexible. It's not something we've generally seen in the past. You know, baseball's been the same way, and it's cool. So I'm excited for Week 7. I think there's some great spots here today, and thank you to all of you in the chat already here, you know, watching the show with your kind words. It's going to be a good week.
No, it's definitely going to be a good week here. And the good thing about the NFL is the show must go on. And thank goodness for us and everybody associated with the business. The NFL is like, hey, got a COVID test? Big deal. Get ready to play Sunday. If you can't play Sunday night, we'll put you on at Sunday at 4 o'clock. The show must go on. And the show must go on right here at SportsBookReview.com. And you know why it goes on? Because 71,700 people have hit the subscribe button here to our YouTube channel. If you haven't done so yet, please feel free to click that button, turn that from red over to gray, and also turn your notification bell on each and every time we go live to talk a little NFL football right here on the channel. You'll get it delivered directly to your inbox. And as Kyle said, welcome into the chat box. Shots in, IC Grossman, Derek, Mark. Who else is in here? Let's see. Sean, everybody get ready. Mr. Football, time to have some fun. And tonight's action is where we're going to get started off right away here tonight, Kyle. And you know who's going to play tonight? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those Philadelphia Eagles are on the docket tonight. Yes, we can talk about my boys tonight, and that is 303-304, the New York Football Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. Match unit time, but we get some updates here on the IR. Deshaun Jackson, welcome back to the team, as well as Lane Johnson should be getting a start at right tackle. Sterling Shepard coming back at wide receiver, at least going to try to come back, activated from the IR. We'll give it a go before pregame to see if he will be active tonight. But just looking at the card so far, opens up at 45, stays at 45, a lot of 44.5 here across the board tonight, but the line that opened up at 5.5 dipped all the way down to 3.5. Now we're seeing a resurgence back to the Eagles side, -4.5s, -5s here across the board. Started off tonight, Kyle. Giants, Eagles.
Yeah, it's. I think this is a close football game, and that's good news for the Eagles, right? It feels like they're rushing Lane Johnson back, but like you said, they held him out last week so he could be ready for these divisional games. And look, the Eagles have a real chance here if they can win tonight at home to sort of take a stranglehold on that division with that tie. That tie looks, better than it's supposed to look. But I like the Eagles quite a bit tonight. I think Wentz getting Deshaun Jackson, even if you only get him for a few plays, at least it's a little bit of relief. And maybe you can shrug some of that James Bradbury shadow coverage who I've kind of given some grief over the last few videos. As I dug into it deeper, he's actually been playing pretty well when put on an island with another receiver over the last few weeks. So if you can get him over there to Deshaun Jackson, maybe it opens up Travis Fulgham, who's been, sort of a revelation there for the Philadelphia Eagles. I know they're without Miles Sanders. It's an absolute mash unit for that team. But I think it's a close game. I think the Eagles win this game. That 5 number does scare me. I could see this being a 3-point game. You really got to lean to the Eagles defense, right? They get after the quarterback. Daniel Jones is going to be under pressure. I know they'll have Sterling Shepard back on a limited basis. He's not going to be a full go, obviously. But then again, that could take some of that Darius Slay shadow coverage away from Darius Slayton, who's probably the most explosive player on that Giants offense right now. Can open him up a little bit. I'm leaning the Eagles, but I think it's close. I think that number's right about. I think that 5 and 4.5 is just about right. This feels like a 3-point game to me. It's going to be a lot of fun.
No, and it'll be a good game tonight to watch and go over. But the thing that we're looking at here is trying to match up is what are the actual New York Giants and what are the Philadelphia Eagles? We know the Eagles are more talented than the Giants. The Eagles have a better overall coaching staff than the Giants do, but you still got to win football games. It's a short week, and usually I'm always pressing to try to take the home team. Now, the one thing I believe the Eagles will win this football game, but they played very well as that underdog spot over the past 3 to 4 weeks that we've seen, getting more than a touchdown, and damn near stealing 2 football games late, even though they did pick up a victory against the San Francisco Giants. But looking at this game overall, I had to go back because I haven't bet a lot of Giants football, but I've been keeping my eye on it. Went back and reviewed a couple games. The fact of how bad they are on offense is quite astounding to me because they're not injury rattled up front. And yes, they lost Sterling Shepard, who in the grand scheme of things is your run-of-the-mill, average, decent wide receiver. Yes, they lost Saquon Barkley, but at the running back position, you can make it by committee and still come up with some outlets. They were downright disgusting. Like, we're talking about a game watching with the Washington Redskins and the Giants at home. It's 13-13 with like 3 minutes to go where the Giants score a defensive touchdown, which was the de facto winning play. If you're the Giants and you're barely scratching the surface of 250 yards on offense, there's no way I can look to the New York Giants and say, that's a value team I want to try to get behind. And quite frankly, it's amazing because take away like a Daniel Jones, like 40 or 50-yard run he had last week, they had like 200 yards in the entire game versus the Washington Redskins. That's something. And if you take a look at like DVOA type stuff or even some of those advanced analytic websites that some people check out, they're dead last in the NFL. And there's a reason for it. Zero explosiveness out of this offense. The one thing you're looking for the Eagles, what can you get out of Deshaun Jackson? Because now you actually have a viable wide receiver coming back. But if we know anything about Deshaun, he'll run a go route, play 2, and there he'll be on the bench. Hey, Deshaun has his helmet on, but it looks like he's trying to stretch out his leg. Never to be seen again. Alshon Jeffrey's out. Of course, we already know that. But Travis Fulgham is a younger version of Alshon Jeffrey. I don't think they'll miss him. The tight end position that we like to look at, Zach Ertz, who has been invisible this year, gets hurt. But normally you'll say, oh, my God, Zach Ertz is out. It's really going to hurt. He has been invisible. So I don't know how much of a downgrade it is from Richard Rodgers right now from what Zach Ertz was actually giving you on the football field. Now, the one thing that does help is Matt Pryor is going to come back to the offensive line and Lane Johnson on the right-hand side. 2 comparable NFL players that should help Wentz. And as the old saying goes, sometimes you just lean on the better quarterback. Wentz, markedly better than Daniel Jones. Yeah. I don't know if they can cover the spread, but it's funny. So, how are you going to pick the Eagles without covering? Again, they played really well as the underdog role. Now they're expected to win by a touchdown. Not so sure about that one, but a little bit later in the show when we wrap it up, I got some banger props in this game that we're really going to eat on here.
Yeah. For me, this game is more of a live betting sort of deal in this game and prop bets. It's just, you could see right there in the chat, it's just a 50-50 split. And I agree, that Giants offense, even when they score a bunch of points, you're like, oh, they must have had a great game offensively. Not really. That offense has been absolutely anemic. And then you take an Eagles defense, that is the strength of the team. Their secondary is pretty solid. They're getting Avonte Maddox back, etc. But that front 7 is a big strength of that team. And Daniel Jones, if we know anything about Daniel Jones, he can be prone to turning the football over and making bad decisions. So it's a really tough game to call. I do think the Eagles win. I'm with you. I'm not sure they can cover that spread. It's probably going to be a close football game. And then, we could turn around later tonight and it's 21-7 in the fourth quarter and the Giants just can't move the football because that Eagles front 7's getting after it. So it's really tough. It's a live betting spot for me, and I like some of the props tonight. I'm glad I saw the Daniel Jones over 28.5 yards because that's one of my favorites later. We'll get over that at the end of the show.
No, we will. And just taking a look at the first 6 games that the Giants have played, if you don't even want to take out and be like, well, they had, 200 yards against the San Francisco 49ers. They've had some bad games. The one you zero in on, Kyle, 300, less than 300, actually right on the dot, 300 yards against the Cowboys. It's like, you take your SAT and you sign your name, you get 500 automatically off the bat. You get 300 off the bat as soon as you line up against the Dallas Cowboys, and they couldn't do anything about it. You have to score points to win football games, and the Giants are abysmal on offense. I think that's what it's going to come down to. So we'll leave it at that. We'll wrap it around on the back end and have some fun. But it's nice to see Thursday night football game, no World Series tonight. We'll be able to watch it. I don't know who else is going to, you got the presidential debates. Me and Kyle could debate right now, which we will over a couple games. But Philadelphia Eagles are on as well. Let's flip it over to Sunday and have some fun here and get after this card today, fellas. 451, 452, Cleveland and Cincinnati. My stance has not changed since Tuesday. You know me, Kyle, when I look at this game. What am I trying to go up against? It's Cincinnati's defense. How can I finagle my way to take maybe a team total for Cleveland or maybe even Cleveland outright? The thing that bothers me about this game a lot, and with gambling being legal here, obviously in the United States and a lot of states, and we still have offshore gambling, the fact that NFL teams can go and still have players with big injuries not get reported is still baffling of how the NFL is now in bed and taking sponsorships from DraftKings, FanDuel, and God knows who, but yet you're going to have an injury like Jarvis Landry saying, hey, early in the game versus the Indianapolis Colts a couple weeks ago, I broke my rib and it really hurts and it makes it tough to practice. And then they say, well, his hip hurts in practice. It's amazing they can still hide some of these injuries. But getting back to the game itself, the big injury in this game is Joe Mixon. And the reason being here is when you look at the first game, he ran really well against the Cleveland Browns. But the fact is, if you take away him from that running game, you're now asking Joe Burrow to throw 50 to 55 times against a pretty good pass rush. That's where I think the game is going to be won on the defensive line from Cleveland's perspective. But you still got Baker Mayfield, looked terrible last week and injured. Odell Beckham Jr. is doing his one. Look, if you have to tell people over and over, Kyle, hey, I'm only about winning. I only care about winning. There's a really good chance you don't care about winning if you have to keep telling people, and that's OBJ. Early in the week, I'm still leaning towards Cleveland here because I think Cincinnati is awful on defense, and the one guy that keeps that offense moving, Joe Mixon, might not play.
Yeah, no, and Joe Mixon has absolutely torched that defense over the last 2 years, like massive numbers. And he looks really, really iffy this week. So if he doesn't play, look, we saw this game in week 2 on Thursday Night Football. Joe Burrow, did us dirty with that backdoor cover late in the game. But now we're not getting that, 6.5, 7 that we were getting in week 2. We're getting a 3.5. And I know the game's in Cincinnati. Cleveland was absolutely embarrassed last week. No Joe Mixon now, or possibly no Joe Mixon. I really like the Browns at -3, -3.5. I just think they're a better football team all around, and they're starting to get healthier in that secondary, which is really going to negate some of the things the Bengals are going to have to do. I mean, let's call it what it is. The Cincinnati Bengals without Joe Mixon are just not very good. You're not going to have any running game whatsoever. I like Cleveland quite a bit this week. I know Baker's still a little bit limited in practice, and I kind of like I'm seeing some juice numbers here. Bovada, Bet Online, Heritage. You're getting some plus numbers at that -3.5. I have absolutely no problem if you're able to play on those books, taking the +100 Cleveland -3.5. Why not? Even you wager right now is at +100 at -3.5. I think Cleveland wins this game by a touchdown. I think they respond this week after an embarrassing game last week, and I know the Bengals sort of showed up against the Colts and then faded away after they got that early lead. No Joe Mixon, limited Joe Mixon, bad for the Bengals. I like Cleveland this week.
And I do agree with you because when you try to take a look at the matchups that Cleveland has had, it's almost one of those teams where when they step into the ring against a true heavyweight champion, they seem to get knocked out and leveled in round 1. But when you're playing teams that aren't as good and not as talented, they seem to run them over. And case in point, when you take a look at last week, trying to play the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming up with like 220 yards total in that game. They did have a pretty good week against Indianapolis's defense, getting 385 yards. But the two games I like to key in, also they played Cincinnati already one time. They had 434 yards of offense versus Cincinnati, versus the Dallas Cowboys, 508 yards. So when you get those bottom of the barrel defenses, which Cincinnati will let you run the football and do whatever you want on the ground. So if Kareem Hunt is ripping off 5-yard runs, what does that turn into? Big plays in the passing game, play action, the linebackers bite. Oh my goodness, there goes Jarvis Landry, there goes Odell Beckham down the seam, there goes David Njoku over the middle. You have some shots. It all is a matter of what do you get out of Baker Mayfield. But again, last week, you're looking at a game where he's a little bit injured and you're under fire from a dominant pass rush. When you play the Cincinnati Bengals, you can sit back there all day long, take your time, find the wide open guy because there's no resistance from that defense whatsoever. It's going to be on turf, mid-50s, light winds. They should be able to eat that ball up out there. 50.5. The only reason why I worry about the over-under itself, Kyle, is because if Mixon sits out, you're going to have to throw the football a lot for Cincinnati, and that really plays into that front four for Cleveland. But I do agree with you here on Thursday. I like the Cleveland Browns. Over-under, lean towards the over because, again, I'm an over guy, but I like the Cleveland side a little bit more. How about this game coming up? If you were to look before the season, or maybe even week 1 of the season, you said, you know what? Dallas is going on the road to play Washington. What are we thinking? 4.5, 5, maybe a 6-point line as a favorite for the Dallas Cowboys because of how bad Washington is? Not the case. And here we go in this game between Dallas and Washington. Dallas opens up a 2-point favorite. That's gone primarily across the board. Yeah. Pick'ems, I'm even seeing some -1s now favoring the Washington Redskins. Yeah. And I got to tell you, if we're looking at, Kyle, one of the sharp games of the week, this one would be it to take Washington at home. But I preface that by saying the only angle you would be playing here for Washington is the bottom fell out, like I like to say on the Cowboys. They don't trust their coaches. The season is done. Dak is out, even though they're still sitting in first place in the NFC East. That can cause a monster ripple effect where the players don't believe in the coaching staff and it turns out on the field. But I watch Washington play. Yes, they have a decent defense, but they have nothing on offense whatsoever. Again, I just get back to the point. It's a Terry McLaurin, a half of a wide receiver, and absolutely nothing. They couldn't do a damn thing last week against the New York Giants. It's one of those games where you have two bad football teams, and I'll be damned if I say I want to be sharp and take the Washington football team, and then they get beat because Dallas just has too much talent for them. I'm staying completely away from the game, but we are a show. We go over games.
Yeah.
Washington.
God, we're here to pick games, right? So, again, I'm right there with you. I will not have a single dollar on this game. Absolutely not.
Man.
But if you look at this from a perspective, Dallas, their defense is awful, right? And the Washington offense is awful. I mean, J.D. McKissick, Antonio Gibson. You mentioned Terry. I think Terry McLaurin's actually really, really good. He excels with terrible quarterback play and everything else. So I do think Terry McLaurin in a different situation could be pretty good. And you can make the argument, depending on your stance on Carson Wentz, that the Cowboys still have the best quarterback in the division with Andy Dalton. Now, I know he looked like crap on Monday night.
This is blasphemy over here.
But again, Andy Dalton is horrible in primetime games, but he's really good on Sunday morning. So I'm not all that concerned about it. Like right now, I would lean the Cowboys. Again, I'm running away from this game faster than I run away from commitment to women. Okay, I mean faster than I could possibly sprint. But just look at the talent for Dallas on the offensive side of the football. You still have 3 great receivers. One of the top 3 running backs in the NFL. You could argue top 2, 1, however you think about Ezekiel Elliott. They should be able to win this football game after an embarrassing week. You've got players coming out about the coaches. Absolutely no doubt Mike McCarthy is one of the lowest IQ coaches to ever grace the sidelines. We've talked about this ad nauseum on this show. I just don't see the talent for Washington. This could be a sneaky shootout game. It really could. You've got Washington has an okay defense, but this could be real sloppy. It's not going to shock me if the Cowboys come out red hot and get up like 14-0 in this game. Run away from it. Since we're a game-picking show, I will lean the Cowboys. But again, take your money and run away from this game.
Couple hundred people watching the chat box. Thank you guys for joining us here on a Thursday, talking a little bit of NFL football. Now, I do have to preface by taking a look at the Cowboys because it's like that, you have the body of a Ferrari, but the engine is just like some beat up Yugo from like 1984. When you look at the offensive line, now Zach Martin is one of the best guards in football. He hasn't practiced, Kyle, the last 2 days with a concussion. So if we say he is going to miss this football game, this is a worse offensive line than anything the Eagles put out all this year. So when you take a look and you try to go, it's hard because you only get 16 games in the NFL. Go back and watch the Washington front 7 versus the Eagles front line game 1, where they just destroyed Carson Wentz, who's a much more athletic quarterback at this point in his career than Andy Dalton is. I can see that happening in this game because if you're getting constant pressure on Andy Dalton, it doesn't matter who the wide receivers are. And if you're collapsing that weak 5-man line, it doesn't matter who your running back is. There is no space out there. So the only motive I see in this game to take the Washington Redskins is that front 4 will bury Dallas's offensive line without Zach Martin, and nothing else matters. And yes, you're taking a look at a defense that looks like they absolutely quit, but I keep watching Washington on tape and saying, well, okay, you still have to score points. It doesn't matter how bad the defense is if you have nothing on your offensive side of the football. The only reason is I think the war of attrition will be damaged on the Dallas offensive line. So I think Washington could get over. That's the reason why I side with the Washington football team in this game, Kyle.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. That Dallas offensive line is absolutely beat up. And one thing good for Washington, Terry McLaurin, when he lines up in the slot, he's going to see who? Jordan Lewis. The Dallas Cowboys secondary is absolutely abysmal. So if Kyle Allen can stay upright and get some things done, then yeah, they could win it. Like, I won't be shocked either way. Neither side of this will shock me. The only thing that's going to piss me off is when I'm watching red zone in the morning and they spend 45 minutes on this game because each team's in the red zone constantly. I'm going to be really pissed because I want nothing to do with this game from a DFS perspective, from a betting perspective, but I know it's going to ruin my red zone day on Sunday morning. I can already feel it. But yeah, it's ugly. It's ugly. And it's for first place. Yeah. It could be for first place in the division. I mean, if the Giants win tonight, this game could be for a share of first place in the division. So, or close to. Yeah. It's good Lord.
No, a lot will be decided because a lot of these teams are going to play each other in the NFC East. Now, it's a terrible, terrible division, but a lot can be decided. Let's just say the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Giants tonight, and then on the road, Washington wins at home. It's probably going to turn into a Philadelphia Eagles division because no other games matter in the NFC East but when they play each other, and they're both going to play each other this weekend. Let's keep it moving here. 1 o'clock on Sunday, 4:57, 4:58. What we think should be an offensive battle down in the Dome in Atlanta, and that's the Detroit Lions and the Atlanta Falcons. About a 50-50 ticket split here at SBR odds offshore. But if we take a look across the board, Atlanta actually opened up as a favorite here. Light juice is a -3, but that's come down a little bit. Pinnacle showing offshore at -2, -111, 2.5s primarily across the board, and a heavy over-under of 55. And why not? Because you're looking at two teams here. Generally, we don't think of, oh, yeah, they play really good defense. And also keep in mind, you are playing in a dome. It's late October, so you're not getting any cooler weather or windy conditions. Both of these quarterbacks should be able to light it up. But when I look at this game, I'm trying to find a way to take it to Atlanta, but then I see again, Julio doesn't play. They interview Julio after practice. I should be good to go. It's one of those things where when he plays and he's healthy, that offense moves the football. But if he's not going to play or exit the game in the first quarter, your entire bet is shot before you even began the football game. They're such a hard team to read. Now, Detroit goes down, and what do? Beat one of the worst teams in the NFL, specifically defensively, in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kudos to them. Now they're going to go on the road and play another bad defense. Do we trust? Marvin Jones with a knee injury hasn't practiced yet. I didn't get the Thursday report back, but he is a little bit banged up. Danny Amendola is banged up. But when I look at this team overall, it's like they played for their interim head coach last week at Atlanta. Do we get that same bump again this week playing the Detroit Lions?
I think that you do. And one thing to keep an eye on for the Lions is their best pass rusher, Trey Flowers, has not been practicing. And if they're without him, that defense is so bad. I mean, it's really bad. Desmond Trufant's giving up 0.61 fantasy points per route ran against on the outside. That is good for fourth worst among perimeter corners in the entire National Football League. So you mentioned it. If Julio Jones is healthy, he and Calvin Ridley should eat on the outside. The Falcons are a streaky team. They did this at the end of last year. We sort of touched on this on Tuesday. When they get rolling, they can really get rolling, and there's no better spot than against a Detroit team that can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. There should be a lot of points in this game. I know I'm seeing the total here at 55, and I've kind of gotten burned taking the Falcons a couple weeks on this over, but right now I think they're two competent offenses. I think the quarterbacks are pretty equal here in Stafford and Matt Ryan. Feels like Julio Jones will probably play. We always go through this with Julio Jones, and last week he kind of made us look bad because he just went absolutely bananas and was fully healthy. Now, the hamstring hurts again. I like Atlanta. I think the line is short enough. I'm leaning the Falcons earlier in the week, but it's really important. If you're backing the Lions, I would really keep an eye on that Trey Flowers injury, because if they can't put pressure on Matt Ryan, that's the only threat they have on that defensive front seven to rush the passer. If they can't do that, the Falcons should beat them at home. The Lions are always going to fight for your dollar, but we kind of treaded the dangerous line on the dark side, as we called it on Sunday, and took the Lions on the road last week. Not a big fan of taking the Lions on the road. They're not a great road team. Neither is Stafford. So I'm going to take the Falcons at home, -2. I'm nervous about it, yes, but it just feels like the right play this week. Keep an eye on that Trey Flowers injury.
By the good practice report here for Detroit coming in today, Amendola practice, Trey Flowers practice, Marvin Jones practice, Frank Ragnow practice. The only guy that did not practice was Desmond Trufant. So looks like those guys are on pace to play in this football game outside of Desmond Trufant, which I think's missed the past couple weeks anyway with a banged up injury. But we'll see if Jeff Okudah can ever step up or live up to his high draft ranking. But we should get some offense in that game overall. Yeah. But it is one of those two teams where are they fighting for the head coach? Matt Patricia? Who knows? Raheem Morris. Hey, win one for the Gipper last week, worked out well. And we saw the first indication that Minnesota's like, hey, you know what? White flag over here. We're really bad. And Yannick Ngakoue gets traded over to the Baltimore Ravens. So they're sending up the smoke signal that they have no shot to do anything this year. So do we rush Dalvin Cook back after his hamstring injury after the bye? For what reason? Now you don't have the pass rusher or defense. Good luck with Kirk Cousins leading you to victory. But obviously they have a bye this week, so no real need to talk about that. But a huge, huge trade going down in the NFL for Yannick Ngakoue. And talk about being a losing end of that trade. You go down and get him. You spend the second-round pick. You use him for a couple games. You trade him away for a third-round pick. So big losers today, certainly the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll keep an eye on that situation. Let's get to Sunday and keep it going. 461, 462, Carolina and New Orleans. Teddy Bridgewater coming to town, back for his old stomping grounds, at least his old team anyway, versus Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. About 6 out of every 10 tickets in here coming in at SBRodds.com offshore. If we take a look across the board, opened up around 7.5, still saying in that 7.5 range, but there are some 7s starting to show. And why is that? If you've been waiting for Michael Thomas to come back and be your savior, Drew Brees, you're going to wait longer, maybe a few weeks even longer, because he hurt his hamstring. And if anybody knows anything about me on any show I do, the one injury that athletes have no idea how to deal with is a hamstring injury. Just a little cramp. Just tweaked it a little bit. That's 3 to 4 weeks right there. We'll see how quickly Michael Thomas can come back from punching people to injuring his hamstring to injuring his ankle. That is a big component of that offense, because early on Tuesday when we're talking about it, I was saying, you know what? This might be the week that New Orleans actually gets right here. But a couple different things have changed. If you look overall at that Carolina defense, not all that bad. And you're looking at a Carolina offense that should be functional coming to town. Took on a tough defense last week with the Chicago Bears, weren't able to get that victory. Now they go on the road, division battle, getting more than a touchdown at some outlets. And that 51, which I would have looked at that, Kyle, on Tuesday and said, you know what? That's a really good shot to go over. I'm not leaning that way anymore because, again, we're going to get back to the dink and dunk offense for the New Orleans Saints. Yep. And I don't know how efficient that Carolina offense will be, as New Orleans Saints will be waiting on them with a full deck there at home to go on defense. And we know how well Drew Brees typically plays at home. I'm actually leaning towards the under 51 in that game, but give me the Carolina Panthers getting the points here in the division.
Yeah, and typically I would take the Saints at home, and they're going to allow some fans. Looks like 3,000 to 6,000 fans will be there, so it's even more. I mean, whatever boost that is for them, and they're just trying to keep them in New Orleans at this point because I mean everyone knows if you took them to the outdoor stadium, my God, that would be a disaster for the Saints. Whatever home field advantage they have with these limited fans, I would just destroy it. But the Michael Thomas news is concerning, and the Carolina defense has been a defense I was even picking on in the preseason and sort of leading up into here. This team is playing a really effective strategy on defense. They play zone 75% of their defensive snaps, which is more than any other team in the NFL. And they have been very, very good, especially in that secondary. It's one of those bright spots for the Carolina Panthers. And I've gotten burned a couple times this year trying to take Carolina on the over. I'm with you. I lean the under in this game, and I think I'm not necessarily saying Carolina's going to win this game, but right now you're looking at 7.5s, 7s, mostly 7.5s across the board. I think Carolina covers that pretty easily. I like Carolina to cover this game. I think it's a lower scoring game. I think you're looking at sort of like a 24-20 type of game. I like Carolina, and I like the under. That defense. Keep an eye on Rasul Douglas. Now that Michael Thomas isn't there, they're going to probably put him on Emmanuel Sanders quite a bit, and he's been really good in the limited shadow coverage that he's played this year. We mentioned that cover 3 zone that they've been playing a lot there in Carolina. I like Carolina to cover the spread here. Give me the 7.5 points.
Yeah, take a look last week. I mean, roughly around 250 yards they gave up to the Chicago Bears. The week before that, Atlanta's offense 203 in the air. Arizona through the air 133. The only game they got damaged is by a rookie quarterback with the Chargers, Justin Herbert. That's 319. Tampa Bay 217. Las Vegas 239. So the defense has played very well here against the pass. It can get gashed on the ground, but again, last week in Chicago only had 63 yards on the ground. I think that defense will come to play. I like what Matt Rule's been doing down there, and I'll take more than a touchdown that currently sits right now for the Carolina Panthers in that game. Let's keep going here. The next game up, this is interesting. And these games that I dip into or like to really break down are some games that most people would just pass over and say this game doesn't make any sense. And we're talking 463, 464. That's the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. It's no surprise that we're taking a look at roughly 7 out of every 10 tickets coming in here on the Buffalo Bills, because if you did watch last week or watch anything that the Jets do with Joe Flacco, that is an embarrassing offense. They're not even playing NFL football. They might as well just take a knee, let their defense go out there and try not to get injured and just keep it moving on. Hopefully they go 0-16 and get the number 1 pick and they could trade that in for Trevor Lawrence. But there are some buts in this week as it opens up at 12.5. We saw it go as high as 13.5. Now we're seeing it come back to 12s. Why is that? Sam Darnold practiced yesterday, felt good. Sam Darnold practiced again, felt good. And when you see Sam Darnold in that offense without Joe Flacco, it's a functional NFL offense. Also, when you take a look at the New York Jets, because you're trying to buy on teams that are low. And I'm not advocating to take, hey, we should just go head on the New York Jets. But the reason why this line is coming down is the fact that you're going to get Denzel Mims, your second-round pick, your explosive wide receiver you take in the draft. He hasn't been on the field yet. He'll play this weekend or is on track to play this weekend. You also have Perryman that's going to get another week, was banged up a little bit coming into last week's game. Came in, caught a couple balls with Joe Flacco. You also have Jamison Crowder. So now you have a full 3-man healthy rotation at wide receiver that should be able to compete. Now you throw that in. Mekhi Becton practiced yesterday and today again. You put your big left tackle back out there, and then you have an athletic quarterback that's not going to say, oh, my God, there's a defense on the field. Help, 26-yard sack. That's not going to be the case this week. And anything that we've seen out of the Buffalo Bills so far on defense has been absolutely wretched across the board. They're not rushing the passer. They have zero help at the tight end position. Tre'Davious White just looks like your average NFL cornerback who got paid and is like, hey, I got paid. I could take care of my family now. Let me just self-preserve out here. They have not stepped up to an elite offense. So that is the reason why that's dropping down. You will get a semblance of a New York Jets offense. Now, having looked at the Buffalo Bills offense, they're going to bounce back in this game because the Jets and Greg Williams, they just ain't got it on defense anymore. They just don't. The Dolphins could have hung 48 on them last week if there was any resistance from the Jets actually being able to move the football and threaten to score some points. I think the Bills take their frustrations out on the Jets and score points. I like the over in this game if Sam Darnold plays in this game here, Kyle.
Yeah, that's the big if. If you get Sam Darnold, that 44.5 seems really, really easy. And I'm never big on, taking double-digit favorites. That's just something I won't do, especially on the road. I usually stay away from that. That being said, Buffalo's getting healthier. I know they did just release that their offensive lineman Spain this week, which is kind of a weird release. But when you see the double-digit spreads, you're like, okay, I need to find a way that the underdog here, the double-digit underdog, is going to compete in this game. If Sam Darnold comes back, I can see it at home. I mean, has anyone else, been more ridiculed than the New York Jets? They look like a team that could go this whole season without winning a football game. But you got to lean Buffalo right here. I mean, God, the Jets have been so bad. If Sam Darnold comes back, sure. You could throw some on the Jets to cover. I'm staying the hell away from this game. The Jets are so embarrassing, so bad. If I'm putting any money on this game, it's on the over. I'm looking at some 44.5s and some 45s. Sam Darnold plays, I like that, but no thank you everywhere else. And if I was going to pick a side, it would be Buffalo because the Jets are just embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing.
You know what's interesting? Just when you look at the Buffalo Bills, like I'm expecting them to bounce back. But I mean, you play the Kansas City Chiefs, Kyle, you get 200 yards. 200 yards of offense. Yeah. And then the week before, you go up against Tennessee, they crush you 42-16. You put up around, 275 in the air, 95 on the ground. The Vegas Raiders, 62 yards on the, what happened to the Buffalo ground game? Because you have an athletic quarterback that's usually to make plays. The explosivity is gone. Yeah. This is one of those weeks I do think they bounce back, but you don't make a lot of money in the NFL by going in your own division on the road and laying close to 2 touchdowns. And also keep in mind where the Jets were still incredibly banged up week 1, 27-17 at the Bills in that game. That was a 10-point margin. So that's a heavy number to cover. And again, I'm not advocating saying I can't wait to take the New York Jets plus money or money line or even with the 13 points. But there are some avenues here that when you have a quarterback that's just sabotaging your entire football team and you remove him from the equation, and the fact that Adam Gase didn't get fired this week, I guess he was able to go to Joe Douglas, the general manager, or maybe ownership, and said, look, All the guys are back this week. Just give me one last shot to go up against it. If we get flatlined, I'll walk out of town, and you don't even have to fire me. We'll just keep moving it on. But I'm seemingly only to think that's the reason why we're Darnold's back, Becton's back, your wide receivers are all back, and you're playing a porous defense in the Bills. Give me one shot here at home before the door finally hits me in the you-know-what. But I would be shocked if the Jets actually were able to pull off the upset. Will not be shocked if the Jets are actually competitive in this football game. Let's keep going. 465, 466. Good one on the card here. As we said on Tuesday, Kyle, everybody and their grandmama are on the Green Bay Packers versus the Houston Texans in this game. Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Bill O'Brien gone. Offense goes up and down the field. You're now playing a team that was thoroughly embarrassed last week. But here's the issue when we look at the Green Bay Packers. If you have a defense that can bully Aaron Rodgers, he cowers, he gets scared, and typically leaves the football game early like we've seen him do against the 49ers and last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You look at other teams in the NFL, right, where they're an injury to their left tackle, they pull their quarterback immediately because they know that once Aaron Rodgers is down, he can't recover and get back in. Switch it over now to Houston Texans, Kyle. You don't have that bully ball defense out here, right? So Aaron Rodgers should be a great front runner in this game. You should be able to move it up and down the field. But I hasten to say, Houston is healthy at wide receiver. Deshaun Watson is playing great football. I'm not going against Houston this week. Everybody and their mom is expecting Green Bay to bounce back on the road like it's a done deal. But as we say in the business, Kyle, this line is 3.5. It ain't 33.5.
That's right. And one thing to keep an eye on is David Bakhtiari, the left tackle for the Green Bay Packers. They really need him to anchor that offensive line. That being said, after all the grief Aaron Rodgers has gotten all week against a Houston defense that cannot stop anyone, their best defensive player is not J.J. Watt. It's Bradley Roby on the outside, and he can't even stop anybody. So he's going to try to shadow Devontae Adams this week. Good luck. I really like the Packers to bounce back this week. Nice, friendly confines. When you start getting into these later October weeks, November, the weather can play a big factor. So now you get Aaron Rodgers, a pissed off Packers team. I think they bounce back this week. I would feel a whole lot better if David Bakhtiari is available to play this week.
He should be.
But I'm leaning the Green Bay Packers here. If this was, 4.5 or 5, I do think this is a relatively close game, 27-20 type game for Green Bay. Maybe you might even see them get into the 30s because that Houston defense is absolutely dreadful. I mean, it's just one of the worst defenses in the league. Them, the Cowboys, the Jaguars. You mentioned the Bengals, the Falcons, of course, the Vikings. I mean, there's some really bad defenses this year, and the Houston Texans are one of them. So I think Green Bay covers at home. This will be one that we'll have our side bet on next week, and maybe I'll end up with a Khabib mustache or something during next week's show.
Now, here's the interesting part about this game also. When you take a look at, it's not really who you play, it's who's able to play. The Green Bay Packers injury list is ridiculously long, and David Bakhtiari hasn't practiced yet this week. Who else is on that hasn't practiced? Tyler Lancaster, defensive end, also Mercedes Lewis, tight end, hasn't practiced. Darnell Savage, the safety, hasn't practiced, and also Robert, that we now know is not Tanyan, it's Tunyon for the season. So there's another different pronunciation that he goes official. So not only was their manhood taken this week, their health was taken last week as well from the Tampa Bay squad. But looking at this game overall, it is hard to go up against Aaron Rodgers. Say, I'm just going to go down because we know that Houston doesn't play all that much defense. Yeah. But Houston is a team that can really come up big. You're talking about one of the elite level teams, Tennessee. They went on the road and punched them in the mouth and had a 7-point lead with under 14 seconds to go in the game that could have beaten them. Maybe that would have changed odds, but I'm just not a believer all that much in Green Bay. But I do think they're going to score some points. 57 is a high number. But again, every single person is taking Green Bay, and that line ain't going nowhere. So it should be a fun one to watch here. Let's keep going. Another 10-bell football game, which it seems like we're getting a lot of these. 477, 478, Pittsburgh and Tennessee. Ben Roethlisberger and Ryan Tannehill both playing at elite levels right now. When you take a look at the Tennessee Titans offense, Kyle, what do they not do well? Now, they do have a big injury at left tackle coming into this week in Taylor Lewan, but outside of that, top 5 running back, top 5 quarterback, top 5 receiving core. This game is going to be pretty good. And yes, I agree with this line movement. Pittsburgh opens up as the 1.5-point favorite, shifts completely now to Tennessee as a favorite. I'm going with the Tennessee Titans in this football game. The 51, I haven't had a good feel, though, for this game on the over. When you take a look at it, both teams have a really good offense, right? Yeah. But sooner or later, that Pittsburgh defense is really good. They should be able to somewhat slow down Tennessee. And maybe from your Tennessee defensive side, the Steelers haven't been all that explosive against upper-level football teams. The 50 seems about right, so I'm leaning towards the under, but I'm not going against the Titans, man. They got everything you need to win, including coaching staff. I like them. I'll take the points, and I agree with the movement here.
Yeah, I sort of can. One thing to keep an eye on for Pittsburgh is that injury to Mike Hilton if he doesn't play in the slot. Now, Mike Hilton's a horrible, horrible coverage corner. But what he's really good at is it allows the Steelers to play those nickel packages, and he's really effective against the run, which we all know you need against the Tennessee Titans. Now, when you look at the Titans, I was not that encouraged by that performance against Houston last week. I don't think they had any business winning that football game. I think Romeo Crennel made the right decision going for 2. Luckily, Tennessee was able to stop it. And then you go the other way. Ben Roethlisberger, a much, much better quarterback historically at home than on the road. Of course, this game was delayed a few weeks back. That was the COVID game where the Titans were unable to play the football game, and the NFL started, reshifting the schedule. I think I'm going to lean the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, the Pittsburgh Steelers have made me money every week this week. I've been called an idiot and said I'm wrong and this, that, and the third every single week taking the Pittsburgh Steelers. And every week they have made it happen, including a game against the Houston Texans where they won that game fairly easily after, an early deficit there. I like the Steelers. They have a much, much better defense. When you look in the slot for the Tennessee Titans defense, now it's weird to pick on an undefeated team's defense, but they actually haven't been that good against the pass. And they're starting a rookie in the slot named Christian Fulton. He's been torched, 0.63 fantasy points per route ran against. I know Juju Smith-Schuster's a little bit limited, has been all year, but this could be a get-right week for him, for you fantasy football players. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I actually like that they're, it's 1.5, so you want the Steelers to win the game, obviously. But if I can get some extra value on that money line by them being an underdog, I'm willing to take the Steelers. I'm going to go with the Steelers this week. I just think they have the better defense, similar offenses, better defense for the Steelers, so I'll take Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it should be a good one, and I'm looking forward to it. Nice 1 o'clock game that's going to be set up there. Ticket split, most of the people going with the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game, but as always, that reverse line movement means there's a lot of big money coming in on Tennessee being at home. And also, if you could take one of those things, because you're right, I thought Houston had them in a pretty good spot last week. Obviously, not because they were up 7 points with like a minute to go and end up losing, but the fact that we forget they played on a Tuesday night, the Tennessee Titans, and had to turn around and play Sunday in their division, and were still able to come up with the victory.
Yeah.
Vrabel, one of the better coaches in the NFL. He'll have these boys ready to go in this game, but a great matchup. If you're just looking to sit back, kick, and watch an NFL game, that's certainly going to be one that you want to keep your eye on. Let's get to the 4 o'clock games here, 469, 470. One of the, I want to say, not romantic games, if that makes sense. That's the San Francisco 49ers and the New England Patriots. Raheem Mostert's going to miss this game. I believe he went on IR with the high ankle sprain. Yeah. So a lot of that explosiveness from the offense does leave the table, but you still have the best tight end in football. You have a good offensive line. Deebo Samuel, a very versatile wide receiver. There's a lot of things they can do. And also keep in mind, yet another week healthy for Jimmy Garoppolo. But I like to watch as things happen. And Kyle Shanahan, he doesn't really tip his hand, because I like the way he thinks through a football game by saying, I know we can win this game already with the amount of points we have. We don't have to hit the gas pedal, because if we do and it turns out wrong, the Rams, like last week, can get back into the game. They took that lead at the half and said, Jimmy, we ain't going to lose this football game. We only need 3 points in the second half. They got their 3 points. They walk away with the win, and that's all that matters. But now you're going up against a New England team going on the road that was embarrassing last week, but you get a full week of practice, probably going to get a couple guys back on that COVID list on the offensive line. But that's not really the issue I have, because when I'm looking at this game, breaking it down, the first thing that draws my attention is the under 44 points. Because where's the explosiveness coming? Because you still have 2 decent defenses on both sides. But who's the guy, Kyle, that's running down the middle for a 75-yard touchdown? I mean, obviously outside of Kittle breaking through coverage. I just don't see that happening in this game from both ends. And I do think you get good defensive performances. One of those 21-17 games, I think you can ring it up for this one for me.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game, and it feels kind of like a trap now that the Niners are getting points, and they're going from the West Coast to the East Coast, and you've got Garoppolo versus Belichick, his first game back in Foxborough after the trade. And then you look at that Patriots offense last week, absolutely abysmal against a trash can team in the Denver Broncos. I mean, it was embarrassing. And so, everyone's going to be down on the Patriots and everyone's going to be high on the 49ers. I will say there's some big play potential. You're not going to get it from Jimmy Garoppolo, where you're going to get it from is the play action and Samuel and Ayuk running those little crossing routes over the middle. It's a run after catch type of offense. So losing Raheem Mostert is a huge loss for this team. Now you're relying on Jerick McKinnon, and hopefully Jeff Wilson Jr. can play this week. So you're not relying on JaMychal Hasty. I mean, that is not a recipe for success. When you look at the weakness for the 49ers, their defense is banged up. The secondary's banged up. Mosley is an okay corner. Jason Verrett, if he can stay healthy, is actually a pretty legit shutdown corner. You look at the weapons for the Patriots. I mean, who are you afraid of in this offense? N'Keal Harry, not so much. Julian Edelman, Cam Newton doesn't have the accuracy or the timing to get Julian Edelman the football. You look at the tight ends, Izzo and Asiasi, nothing. Demir Bird, so I think the 49ers, even though they're banged up, are the better football team coming in. They've played pretty good on the East Coast, so I like that they're laying a couple points here. And I think you're right. Even though, nowadays you see an over-under at 43.5 and you want to jump all over it because of all the scoring going on in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think you're right. This is probably this is going to be a good chess match between two of, you could argue the two brightest minds in terms of scheming in the NFL, offensively for Shanahan and defensively for Belichick. I like the 49ers in a close game. I like that they're laying a couple points, so give me the 49ers.
Over 300 people currently watching us live here on Thursday. The support you guys give us in the chat box, watching the shows, giving the retweets. It's why we do this on the air. It's why we have so much fun. I know that this Thursday show, it's great because it gets played from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all the watchbacks, close to 10,000 views a week. So awesome stuff, guys. But yeah, looking at San Francisco, I actually agree with you here. I do think they're the better overall football team. And a lot of from what, gambling perspective, you're open up at a 3.5. That line is now 1.5 and 2s across the board. That means a lot because if you're looking at one of those coin flip games, I actually do trust the San Francisco offense way more than I do the New England offense because what do you expect? Like for New England's offense to operate, Camden has to have like 17 carries for like 80. It's just an odd operation where so many people jump the gun. Remember you saw week 1, like Cam Newton, player of the year, comeback player of the year. Should they sign him now to 6 years, $400 million? Bill Belichick got a steal. Don't like so much of a steal right now, so we'll see how it plays out. But I agree in this game. I think San Francisco's scheme, I think San Francisco's players are better than the New England Patriots, but just the fact that you're coming West Coast to East and you got to play, we'll see how that matches up. Next game on the docket here, divisional game in Denver. And let me just check real quick on this one. Weather, look at this, Kyle. I'm seeing 18 degrees at kickoff with snow on the ground. I'm sitting here just outside of Philadelphia on a Thursday with 80 degrees, and we're about to go over a game that has the capability of being under 20 degrees at kick and get some snow here. That's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos, 50-50 ticket split. And we're still looking at a pretty large number out here. Opens up at 9. We got 9.5s across the board. 48.5 is an over-under. Now you're seeing the dip come down because when you take a look at the Kansas City Chiefs, we don't ever think under. It doesn't even matter who they're playing, right? Yeah. But now look at this. 48.5s have turned into 45.5s at most outlets. 46s at most outlets. I got to say, though, it's funny because we do the Monday Night Football show. We've had the Kansas City Chiefs on a couple of times, and the same thing always comes back where you sit there because I had the Buffalo Bills getting the 5.5, had a chance to walk through the back door, but obviously we have, Josh Allen and a little bit of rain, and he just throws an interception, which we called before the drive started. Is it just as simple as this? Look, if you're looking to bet against Kansas City, take this game, remove it off your board, and just keep looking down the list. Is it that simple anymore?
I don't know. The Chiefs haven't looked all that great. Now, I know they look good on Monday Night Football. 10 points in Denver with that weather situation seems awfully high. And to answer, I saw a fantasy question from one of our best fans, from our guy Sean over there in Ireland. Always makes the time to watch us no matter what time it is.
That's awesome.
When you look at this weather and you look at the Chiefs' defense where they actually struggle against the run, you got to take Melvin Gordon in that fantasy question over McKinnon and Boston Scott. So I would take Melvin Gordon as long as he's going to play this week. Just to answer your question. Now you're looking, you see the total of this game drop, 4 points basically across the board because of the weather. And sometimes
that's an update, Kyle, from Tuesday, too, because we were talking about like weather at like 36 degrees and no snow. So keep an eye on that just from a betting perspective here. When you see games like this, you do want to jump the gun, but I've seen it before where I saw snow in Denver on like a Wednesday. Oh, my God, take the under. And I watch on Sunday and I'm like this. You SOB weather guys, you killed me because it's 38 degrees and no snow. So keep an eye on that game. But go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of
it's really important to do. That's why jumping on this game now because you see a weather report is probably a bad idea because I've done that plenty of times too. Like, oh, there's going to be a ton of snow and wind, and it's going to be cold. Stay away from this game. Then you turn the game on, you're like, wait a minute, all the snow's melting. There's not really a lot of wind, and these guys are just throwing the ball up and down the field. You can see their breath, and that's about it. So it is, I would hold off until the last minute and kind of keep an eye on the weather in this game before I overreacted to any of those totals. Of course, you expect the Chiefs to win. 9.5 in Denver on the road with bad weather. Seems like quite a bit. So right now I'll lean the Broncos to cover, but I still think the Chiefs win.
Yep, and if you guys are hearing in the background right now, Kyle, yes, he does live in Area 51, so sometimes we do have a little bit of aliens flying over his house trying to get their knowledge in. It seems like they were flying in on the Denver game saying, you know what, maybe you're going to take a little bit of a dog, getting the 9.5 out of that equation. Let's keep moving along just a few moments. We're going to bring on Kelsey Kramer, talk a little pick six action, which I struggled last week, but still sitting above 500 with a couple plays coming this week. Let's move it on. 479, 480, Jacksonville and the Chargers. Minshew versus Herbert out in Los Angeles. Are we rested and ready with the Chargers in this game? If we take a look, they're expected to win by more than a touchdown, opening up at 7.5. Now we're seeing some sevens creep in, but still 7.5 primarily at most books here that we're taking a look at SBRodds.com. Opened up at 49, Kyle. I don't see a lot of movement in this one either, but when I'm taking a look at this game, to be honest with you, it's almost as we like to say in your background there, a flyover game because I don't have a great feel for the Chargers just going out and blowing Jacksonville off the table. Jacksonville's defense stinks. The young rookie quarterback Herbert should eat in this game. But I'm just looking at this as like that sterile environment out there for the Chargers. Should they be able to win by 7.5? I guess they should, but you're still dealing with a rookie quarterback having to win by double digits. Maybe Minshew gets off the carpet and they have a decent effort. But also we talk about Ingram coming back, so you have that power defensive ends that can really get after that offensive line for Jacksonville. It's one I don't have a great feel for. Do I lean towards the over just because Jacksonville's defense is out there? I do. But again, flyover game for me out there at LAX,
Yeah, no, for me too. And the thing is, will the Jacksonville offense respond? Because they just simply haven't been doing that. And now you get Melvin Ingram back for the Chargers, making things even more difficult for Minshew and company there on the offensive side of the ball. The Chargers, even though, they've suffered some injuries in that secondary, Chris Harris, etc., Derwin James, of course, earlier in the year, they're still a pretty good secondary. So I'm not sure that Jacksonville can score enough points to justify that over. I do think the Chargers are the better football team here. Both teams are obviously probably going to be drafting in the top 10 next year in the NFL draft. You'd have to lean the Chargers here. If we're picking the game, I would lean the Chargers. I would lean the under. I'm with you. I'm staying the hell away from this game. I'm not in the business of taking rookie quarterbacks on one-win football teams who are favored by more than a touchdown. It just doesn't make a whole lot of damn sense. But Jacksonville's offense, they even when they're teed up and ready to go, the mistakes they make in the red zone are maddening. They're not great on third down. DJ Chark's in and out of the lineup. Unless Keelan Cole is going off, the offense has been pretty anemic from my perspective. So I do think the Chargers are the better football team. I do think they win the game. If I had to pick a side here, it'd be the Chargers in the under, but I am staying away from this game with my money personally.
Now, next game we're going to bring up here, which was supposed to be a early game, 4:25 on the West Coast, but now this is going to flip into Sunday Night Football, but we're still trying to keep it in somewhat of time semblance. So it's the reason why we're going to go over this game before the de facto Tampa Bay game, which has now been switched back. We're going to talk a little Seattle and Arizona, Russell Wilson versus Kyler Murray. What was not to like about Arizona just absolutely dusting Dallas off in the week before that, beat down a really bad Jets team. Well, they're not going to play two, incompetent football teams after they just got done those two, and now play a real competent one coming off a bye. Seattle comes to town with Russell Wilson. This line opens up at 3, goes to 3.5. Here's the issue that we have, or I shouldn't even say an issue. These are two really good NFL football teams, one 4-2, the other one unbeaten in Seattle. We know that Russell Wilson is the king of games that come down to a one-possession game in Las Vegas, or the odds makers are going to hang this game less than 7, which means we we anticipate this possibly being yet another one-possession game. But now you have the Arizona Cardinals stepping up in competition, playing Seattle, which they played fairly well over the past couple of years. We want to see how Nuke Hopkins is at wide receiver, banged up with that ankle injury, wasn't really effective in the Dallas Cowboys. They didn't even need him, really. Had that one nice catch late, but then, taking a little bit of time off in practice this week to rest up that hobbled ankle. Is this where one of those, I don't want to say like those underlying Arizona Cardinals finally jump up and say, you know what, we're going to take down Seattle and really make a play for this NFC West title? Or is it a paper tiger that's just not ready to play yet? Because as I always say with Seattle, Kyle, and I even like to take it down even a number, if this game is 22-21 with 2 minutes on the clock and Seattle has the ball in their own 15, only needing a field goal, you know damn well Russell Wilson is not getting that field goal. He's punching in the touchdown for the cover in this game. Taking Russell Wilson at that 3.5 point level, you know they're going to be in the game. Even if it's 3rd and 17 from the 22-yard line, you know DK Metcalf scoring a touchdown to cover that line. I'm not ready just yet to take Arizona, but damn, I'm getting close in these type of games now, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good football team, and they're a home underdog. Again, these games were very competitive last year, by the way. Everyone's anticipating a ton of points. That's not necessarily what happens. And when you look at that Arizona secondary, Patrick Peterson is most likely going to shadow DK Metcalf. When you look at no team in the NFL runs more man-to-man coverage than the Arizona Cardinals. They like to put pressure on the quarterback, and they leave their secondary in man-to-man situations. When you look at their perimeter corners, Patrick Peterson and Dre Kirkpatrick, they have not allowed a lot of big plays to opposing wide receivers. They've allowed the 11th fewest fantasy points to the position and 2nd fewest once you adjust for opportunity and routes ran against. They're also 3rd. Opposing wideouts have only managed 4 touchdowns against that team, which also included 1 touchdown by Amari Cooper last week in garbage time. So there's going to be more defense played in this game than we think, especially by the Cardinals. The Seattle Seahawks secondary still looks like it's going to be without Jamal Adams this week. They did sign Michael Kendricks, the insider trading.
Crypto man.
Yeah, the crypto man to the practice squad. So we'll have to see. And there's no doubt that DK Metcalf has evolved from last year. Absolutely no doubt. It's not going to surprise me if he's the best wide receiver in the league here in a couple of seasons. But this game could be lower scoring than you think. One thing to kind of keep an eye on is Tyler Lockett in the slot against Byron Murphy, who tends to struggle just a little bit. I like the Cardinals to cover in this game. I'm always concerned. The scenario you brought up is all too real for me. Trust me, I'm an AFC West fan with my 49ers. I do like the Cardinals to cover. I'm rooting for the Cardinals to cover. But, of course, if this game is a 2-point game coming down the stretch, we are very, very – and the Seahawks have the ball. Yeah. Just turn the TV off, walk away, smoke your cigarette, take a shot, whatever the hell it is that you have to do because you probably just lost your bet.
And you're so right about it. Like the Seattle Seahawks never play out the way you're supposed to come down. Like, hey, we need a field goal. Let's be safe. They don't give a damn about that. They just punch in touchdowns whether or not they need it, just because of how good Russell Wilson is and DK Metcalf. And they're also talking about signing Antonio Brown, which I think is ridiculous. That you have these young wideouts who are really good. You have a football team that's unbeaten. You don't add trash into a clean house. You take the trash out and leave it there. Right. We'll see where Antonio Brown ends up, but I don't think he belongs in Seattle. It'd be ridiculous for him to end up.
He doesn't belong in the
Seattle.
league. He's just a horrible person. This is the kind of guy that
like he should be in Cleveland, right? Like like Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and Antonio Brown should be on the same team, beating up Baker Mayfield, like cornering him, just throwing body shots at him to see who gets the football. You don't need Antonio Brown messing up what you got with DK Metcalf, a true star in the NFL. Just leave him out there. Russ doesn't need any wideouts, running backs, or offensive line. If Russ played by himself, I still think they would put up 28.5 points in this game. Let's talk about the Sunday Night Football game. Get to the Monday Night Football game. We're running a little bit long, but hey, we got some extra time here, and then we're going to bring on Kelsey, talk a little bit of pick six picks for the week. Now, this game, which was supposed to be Sunday Night Football, now has moved into the 4 o'clock time slot because the NFL doesn't want to be left holding the bag. Hey, Sunday Night Football's on. Who's on? Nobody's on. COVID got this game. So rightfully so, the NFL is about that bottom line, a smart business decision to take a game not worried about COVID, slide it in. So if something does happen to that Las Vegas game and you got to move it to Monday or Tuesday, it's not going to affect any primetime football here on Sunday night. But I have to tell you, a lot of things have changed during the week, specifically since we last spoke on Tuesday going over it, and that being the entire offensive line for Las Vegas, who I do think is going to be back outside of Trent Brown, who's one of the best left tackles in football. He's on the COVID list with COVID, obviously asymptomatic, like 99.999999999% of athletes are actually, don't have any problems, could probably play the football game, but you don't want to transmit the disease around. So they're waiting to see if they can get some of those offensive linemen back to practice. But if there's 1 week, if there's one game that you can't afford to have your offensive line not healthy and not on the same page, if you've watched the Tampa Bay front seven, including, yes, their linebackers, sideline to sideline, and a nasty line up front, Derek Carr's got to be looking at this game going, good Lord, man, we got healthy, and we're supposed to get healthy after a bye. Now we're getting more injured through, a viral disease. Yeah. I see the lines now opening back up. They were at 3s. They were 3.5s. They shut it down. Seeing it open up, Bet Rivers and also Bet365 here in New Jersey, now showing 4s, and I agree with it. If your line is in disarray, Tampa is going to squash you like a walnut in this game.
Exactly, and you mentioned the pass rush. Tampa Bay, 22 sacks this year, second best in the NFL. And now your entire offensive line is in quarantine. And your secondary is not all that great. Chris Godwin is now going to be a week healthier. Leonard Fournette is supposed to be coming back from Tampa Bay. They looked really good last week against Green Bay. This one feels like Tampa Bay by a touchdown or more pretty easily. If that offensive line was healthy for the Raiders at home, I would probably feel a little bit different. I know we've got quite a few Raiders fans, and I'm sorry to Abel and all them who, we've been picking on the Raiders all year, and they've made us look dumb a couple times, and a couple times we look smart. This time it's Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay stomps all over Vegas. I just hope this game plays. And again, I wouldn't go bet this game right now. I would wait until Saturday, because if they're already moving the game to earlier in the day and you're seeing player after player from that Raiders team being quarantined, et cetera, and their contact tracing and all that stuff, I would hold off on it, even though I like the line right now. You don't want your money being tied up for 2 weeks or whenever they reschedule it.
I wouldn't be tied up for that game, but just from a betting perspective, you don't know who's in the game actually playing yet, which is the reason why they took it off the board. So there's better games on the card, unless it's Sunday and hey, game's going on, I know who's playing, right?
Then you throw it in, exactly, and then in that spot you take the Bucs. If it's under a touchdown, you take the Bucs. That's just how I see it. So I'm comfortable with this lining moving up to 4.5, 5, even 5.5. I'm still happy to take the Bucs there. I just think they get after Derek Carr. They have more weapons. I don't know how the Raiders defense keeps up with all of the weapons from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that defense for the Bucs, so much better this year. They've always been a good run defense. Now that secondary is coming around with the emergence of Carlton Davis. You got to like Tampa Bay this week.
I do like Tampa Bay, and typically I would be all over the Raiders, a week off, rested and ready, knocked off Kansas City, everybody's healthy. But again, if you're going to take that key cog, because you remember we're talking about going into that Kansas City game, not to say they would win, but we both had the Raiders to cover that game. You get your deep threat back in Henry Ruggs, but more importantly, Trent Brown was back for that game. You say, boy, I got my stalwart left tackle, the highest paid tackle in football, coming back to play, and that pays dividends. Now, not only is he out, you might be out with another couple guys on the offensive line, and that doesn't work against Tampa Bay. If you're playing Cincinnati, who cares who's on your offensive line, because they can't break a paper bag. But at this point, you really need your offensive line to be firing on all cylinders to take that extra few seconds to get Henry Ruggs open down the field. We'll see how it plays out, but you're right, Kyle. It's hard to bet this game early without knowing the actual players in the game, or if it's even going to be played on Sunday or pushed back. Last game we'll talk about before we bring on Kelsey, talk a little pick six, have some fun, and also go over some picks tonight for the NFL game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants. Monday Night Football, 475, 476. Chicago and Nick Foles, one of the more unheralded teams, sitting with a really good football record, being the Bears, going up against the Rams, who were stunted last week against the 49ers, didn't really come to play, didn't look all that effective on offense. Cooper Kupp couldn't catch. Jared Goff wasn't making the throws. A real anemic performance that they look to bounce back, but they're going to get a really good defense with the Chicago Bears. But having said that, I'm a proponent. I like Nick Foles. He is perfect for the Chicago Bears offense and team because he plays simple football. I'm going to make the right read. I'm going to dump it off to the running back when he's open. If the tight end's open 7 yards down the field, I can throw and make a play. And also if Allen Robinson is running one-on-one, I'll throw a nice softball that gives him a chance to make a catch and make a play. Because Mitchell Trubisky on all those levels can't play football whatsoever. So it is a nice move. But having said that, this offense really struggles, and it's amazing. Like Tariq Cohen, you don't think of as a big, time player that's going to make a big difference in your offensive game plan. They are absolutely stagnant. Take a look after the Atlanta game, Kyle, when Nick Foles was installed as the starter in the second half. They've rushed for 28 yards at 1.8 yards per carry against Indianapolis. Tampa Bay, 35 yards on the ground, 2.5 yards per carry. And then last week versus Carolina, 63 yards on the ground and 2.5 yards per carry. So say, hey, well, how's their offense doing on, passing wise? Indianapolis, 241 yards, which they got a lot on that last drive when they scored a touchdown that game. Tampa Bay, 208 yards. How about Carolina, 198 yards? I love Chicago's defense. I like Nick Foles being able to manage a game plan, but I just look at this game and see a non-explosive offense going up against an offense that is now chomping at the bit to get after it on the field. And yes, the Bears have a good defense. I just can't trust that offense from Chicago to come up with a victory in this game. So I'm going to go with the points, minus the 6, and take the Rams in this football game on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I those stats you brought up were just 100% great points. They were everything I was looking at when I was looking at this game. And then you just think about, where is the weakness of the Rams defense? I guess the linebacking core, but the Bears aren't a very good rushing football team. Then you're going to put Jalen Ramsey on Allen Robinson. Sometimes he does kind of work his way over into the slot. Then you've got Darius Williams and everyone else. That Rams defense, unless you can scheme around, we've got the 49ers sort of were able to have success because it was a really smart game plan by Kyle Shanahan. Are we getting that same thing out of Matt Nagy? I don't think so. So I think the Bears struggle to score points. I like the under in this game, the under 45 right now. I'm not sure this game gets above 45. I don't trust that Bears offense all that much. And I do think the Bears defense is pretty good. So even though I think the Rams will scheme better, be able to get some players open, will run the football better than the Bears do, I'm not sure these are two teams that both get into the 20s. I think the Rams are the better football team all around. I do think I'm nervous about the -6. That feels just about right. That feels about as efficient as you can possibly get with the line. Matt Nagy is not a genius. I saw that in the chat. If you think Matt Nagy's a genius, I have some magic beans. I have some magic beans to sell you. You can go up the beanstalk and collect the gold from the giant himself. Matt Nagy is not a genius. I don't trust that offense. I'll lean the Rams right here. I like the under as the best play for this game.
And when you look at the game overall, Kyle, because you tried to equate it last week of what you saw with San Francisco, right? When San Francisco was healthy in the first half, explosive running back Raheem Mostert, obviously George Kittle is the single best tight end in football. You roll it over to this week because if you watch anything with the Chicago Bears, and I preface it, they're going to get to the playoffs because they have a very good defense and Nick Foles will be able to manage the game. But in this type of situation, I don't think you can manage the game because I think you're going to get a pretty competent effort back on turf for the Los Angeles Rams, specifically at the wide receiver position, because again, you're looking at the Bears offense. They don't have George Kittle. They don't have a wide receiver that runs, Cordell Patterson, but I don't think he's nearly half the guy Deebo Samuels is at this point. And also the running back position. Montgomery's a nice player, but there's zero explosivity. And you take a look at Aaron Donald in that front line going after a quarterback not all that mobile, I think it makes sense. But if you are a Chicago Bears backer and you're taking a look at maybe making a impact in this game, it doesn't get much better than the Bears front four in this game. And we've seen Jared Goff under pressure really struggle, and those guys will be able to get after Jared Goff. I think McVay will have a pretty good game plan in this. One of those games that fits perfectly into a 24-17 type battle because, again, I don't think the Bears will be as explosive. I don't think the Bears will get into the 20s, so that means I'm going to lean on the Rams in that type of spot here, Kyle.
Yep, completely agree, and that's also why I like the under. I just don't think the offense can get it done, and I don't think Matt Nagy is a great offensive schemer. I know he tries to be, and people want to think that he is. I just, quite frankly, haven't seen it. Not sure how good David Montgomery is. I think Aaron Donald gives him problems up the middle. So I'm leaning the Rams, but my favorite play is the under because this does feel like one of these 21-16 type of football games. It's a good Monday night game. Probably not going to be all that exciting from a scoring perspective. But yeah, I'll take the Rams. I just think they're better coached, more talent.
All right, we're going to circle back in just a few moments and talk about the Thursday night football game. Spending a little bit of extra time with us talking some NFL football, but now it's time to get to the Pick Six contest. $50,000 worth of cash and prizes, weekly prizes, year-end prize. Now we like to bring in one of the first ladies of football here at sportsbookreview.com to go over her pick six plays, give some analysis, and just see what's up and see if she has anything going on tonight between those Philadelphia Eagles and those New York Giants. Kelsey Kramer, welcome into the show. Good to have you on a Thursday talking a little bit of football.
Hey, y'all. Missed you last week.
Yeah.
Well,
I got a real nice promo going last week. I'm like, where is she? Not here today, but we do have you this week, and we're happy to have you this week. The chat box is happy. Kyle's happy. I'm happy. We're ready to get after it because I see the pick six contest up here. Now, the one thing I do want to say is I'm looking at the plays now, and there is a play tonight on the Philadelphia Eagles-Giants game. I'm pretty sure you put the wrong team into this equation tonight. Is that right?
Donnie, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go against you guys, but I have to, man. I mean, y'all have a banged up offense, banged up defense, and the Giants have kept their opponents close. They're coming off of the win, and they have an underrated defense with 15 sacks that ranks right in the middle. Eagles love to see Carson Wentz go down. I'm putting the +6 on the Giants, but I think the Eagles can win. I just took the Giants at +6, and I know it's down to what, 4 now?
It is. It's about 4.5s, 5s across the board. But yeah, you got a really good number on that. Now, me being an Eagles fan, the only thing I'm upset about tonight, Kelsey, is this fact that Eli Manning is not playing. Because if he wasn't playing, I could go out and take the wife and kid out tonight and just check the score and be like, yep, Eagles won again. But now that Eli's not playing, I do get a little bit of stress out of these Giants games because we always beat up little brother up there. But now you got a new sheriff in town with Daniel Jones and a new coach and a beat-up Eagles team. Still think we get the win, but it was always nice just flatlining Eli Manning. So I do agree with you, though, however, on the 6 points. Kyle, you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's the right play. If I got a +6, I would take the Giants because I think this is a pretty close game tonight. I think the Eagles' front seven does get after Daniel Jones, and you can certainly get burned later in the game by a stupid Daniel Jones turnover because, look, you might miss Eli Manning, but it's probably a lot nicer seeing Daniel Jones. I mean, that guy, he could turn the ball over 6 times tonight. He's absolutely atrocious. Should have been drafted in the 7th round, not the 1st round. I mean, seriously, the guy is an absolute trash can at quarterback. It's horrible. It's horrible to watch. I can't stand it. I've tried to play him in DFS. He pisses me off more than most quarterbacks. And trust me, I always thought Eli Manning had a punchable face, always pouting on the sidelines. So I wasn't a big fan of Eli Manning either. But, yeah, I like the Giants here. You could see Daniel Jones ruin it with the late pick 6. But I think the +6 number is a really nice number. I'm actually jealous that you got that.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. Let's take a look. Another New York team that we're going to look at on Sunday, 463, 464. The Buffalo Bills come east. Actually, they come out of New York to play in New Jersey to play the New York Football Jets in this game. Heavy line in this one. Are we believing in the hype? Adam Gase and his crazy eyes and his madness going to come up with a victory after that stellar performance last week versus the Dolphins? Are we going the Jets here? Or are we going to go with those Buffalo Bills circling the wagons?
Okay, first of all, I would not trust the New York Jets with my money ever. But and to vent more, this Miami team that everyone's rah-rahing about on Twitter, I don't know if I follow too many Dolphins fans. It's just annoying. Like, they're not that good. Congratulations, you beat the Jets last week, who suck. The Bills are balanced on both sides of the ball, and we saw an okay defense take out Joe Flacco last week, what they did to him, and this week we're going to watch a really good defense up against Flacco. And then on top of that, Adam Gase's run defense ranks 21st, and that's not where you want to be when you're up against a Bills ground game and mobile quarterback.
By the way, Kyle did take the Jets on the money line if you didn't listen earlier, Kelsey, so there's that.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Adam Gase should be hanging out there on Miami Beach, on South Beach with Dan Quinn. They should be, crying over their firings and drowning their sorrows and, gin and tonics. But no, Adam Gase still sitting here coaching a football team. Makes me feel good. Maybe one day I'll get an NFL coaching job and I'll just, put my blinders on and just randomly do things. Awful coach, awful football team. So I don't mind taking the Bills. I just get scared of those double-digit spreads, especially if the Lego policeman Sam Darnold finds his way back into the line.
He's going to find his way back, and he is going to be Legoing it up out there. We'll just see if they can equate to, hey, look, There's obviously an improvement. I mean, Sam Darnold comes in and leads them to a field goal. They're going to be like, oh, my God, this team is so good now because, used to them not scoring any points whatsoever. Why don't we take it down to a little Mardi Gras action down in the Dome? And that's Carolina going to head down with Teddy Bridgewater versus the New Orleans Saints here with Drew Brees, who we thought was going to have his team ready to go full tilt. But Michael Thomas, as we like to say, steady, beating on teammates, twisting ankles and pulling hamstrings. Looks like he's not going to play in this game, so that line's steady at 7 to 7.5. Are we going to see a nice little bounce-back effort here off a bye for New Orleans, or are we going to be backing those Teddy Bridgewater? He's coming for revenge, Kelsey. He's coming for revenge.
I love Carolina, and their young defense is really solid. The problem here is Teddy Bridgewater and Mike Davis are not Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey. I don't think they ever will be. The Saints, even without Mike Thomas, are still a better team. We've seen that firsthand. And I just want to wish the Panthers luck.
Wow.
How about that? Just wish you did. So what is this, a 42-0 beatdown?
Okay. First of all, Teddy Bridgewater is better than Cam Newton by a mile. Now, he had the one good year, the MVP year back in 2015. But now the best thing that Cam Newton has going for him is his weird fashion choices. Maybe he'll be in like Good Housekeeping or whatever the hell it is that he's wearing on his head, pineapples or whatever else the hell it is.
Fishnets, yep.
Yeah, fishnets. I mean, I wish I could get away with wearing stuff like that, but I would look even more ridiculous than I already do. But I think the Saints cover here. A big benefit to the Saints, though, another week of rest for Janoris Jenkins and Marshawn Lattimore, so that should help them out quite a bit on the perimeter. But I still think Carolina covers. Teddy B is going to come in there and show the Saints that they're missing out with Scrub Muffin Drew Brees at quarterback.
All right, keep it moving here. Those hometown Atlanta Falcons, who came up off the mat with an interim coach, blew out the Vikings, beat them so bad that they're waving the white flag and starting to trade people. And now they come home. Julio Jones looks like Julio Jones of 5 years ago. Now we're seeing him sitting out of practice again. I think I'm going to be able to play. Who are we going with here? Is this the Atlanta Falcons making a crazy run to the playoffs? Maybe not, but hey, we can all be believers and dreamers here. Are we going with those hometown Atlanta Falcons, or are we coming to town with a little Matthew Stafford, Georgia return action here?
Definitely my hometown Falcons. I have to take them. I went against them last week because I did not believe in them, but I love Raheem Morris. I love what he's doing to this team. We saw Matt Ryan and Julio Jones get their mojo back. Now Julio Jones, he's questionable for this weekend, but I think the Lions team is definitely an easier opponent than they've seen. I said that before, but I love Raheem Morris, and Julio Jones asked Morris if he could run a play again and practice, and Morris just said no and kept rolling, and I think that's what the mindset is going to be like coming into this game. It has to be perfect the first time around.
Kyle, what are you thinking here? Atlanta coming back, Julio? I mean, we're DFS people. That team is completely different when Julio is wrecking shop out there.
Yeah, I actually like both sides of the passing game. I think Kenny Golladay absolutely torches Kendall Sheffield on the outside. One of the worst perimeter defensive backs in the NFL is Kendall Sheffield. I know A.J. Terrell's coming back, and maybe he's progressing a little bit. They demoted Isaiah Oliver into the slot. So it's a trash can defense against another trash can defense in Detroit. Then you've got Stafford and Ryan, the epitome of, guys whose stats have kind of overinflated their careers. That's sort of what you're getting with both those guys. I like this game. I like points in this game. I am actually agreeing with Kelsey. I'm taking the Falcons. So, by the way, I will preface this. The Falcons, I have gotten the Falcons wrong every single bleeping week this year. No team is pissing me off more this year than the Atlanta Falcons. But I do think that they cover at home. It's a short line for me, 2.5. Good for Detroit that Trey Flowers is practicing. Desmond Trufant missing, whatever. He's been terrible anyways. Should be a lot of points. I'll take the Falcons at home.
Interesting, because you're talking trash cans, and yes, we're going to talk about the Giants in just a few more moments here. But we got a couple more. We got a couple more games to go over here, and we're going to talk a little bit of Sunday night football now between Seattle and Arizona. Moved into the primetime slot. Kyler Murray going up against Russell Wilson. Little brother, big brother. Can they throw a punch and knock them off, or is this one of those games you're like, Seattle's got this, right, Kelsey?
I think Seattle has this one, but Kyler Murray, I mean, he performed at an elite level last week against the Cowboys. Then again, the Cowboys are garbage, and I really just wanted to hug them after that game. The Cardinals secondary is going to get exposed. Seahawks are coming off of a rest. But it's moved into prime time. I have the Seahawks at -3. I think this is going to be a really close matchup. I would take the over. The primetime thing changes it for me. But Chandler Jones is out with the Cardinals. I'm going to the game. So now I'm like, go Cards. I'm still... this is hard. I'm going with the over. I picked the Seahawks in the first place, but now I'm taking the over. Let's have a good game.
It should be a good one there. By the way, we saw a couple pictures there you posted on Twitter. Are you hiking to this game? Is this correct as well?
Oh my gosh. Arizona hiking is rock climbing. There's no such thing as a peaceful hike. You're climbing rocks.
Sounds terrible.
No doubt about it. Now, we're talking about over-unders also as the last game on Monday Night Football, and I like to put out spreads as well on that because, again, getting back to your Twitter handle there, if you guys don't follow her, very advantageous here. Over-under on foot size, 7.5. Are we going over on that too?
I thought it was a 9.5 for sure.
That's funny. My feet look like clown shoes in that one, but I promise they're not. Like, I'll post my shoes next time, the size.
There you go. By the way, Bears Los Angeles Los Angeles Monday. Go ahead.
Under my shoe size. Well, it's actually
under 7.5.
Under 46.
That's good.
Well,
yeah, that's good.
That's official.
That's official.
Way under 46. Guys, stop.
Sorry, I can't help it. That's
awful. I know that my uncle pointed it out, which is worse.
It's better. It's even better.
By the way, Chicago and the Rams, Monday Night Football. Look, Nick Foles coming to town. Jared Goff, 2 good defenses. Points, not points. Where are we going in this one?
I thought we just said that. I said the under 46.
We weren't paying attention. That's why
I was thinking about the clown shoes and everything else. So,
my awful feet, which are actually very dry since living out here. Sorry, that's gross. Okay, so this is the weirdest Bears team we've ever seen. I feel like, I've only been alive for so long, but 5-1. Nick Foles is not that good. Their defense rocks. The Rams looked embarrassing last week against Kyle's Niners. But I have to remember Aaron Donald is coming. I love Aaron Donald. He's coming back mean as hell this week. To make up for last week with no sacks, this is going to be a defensive battle under 46.
I like it. Now let's talk a little bit about Thursday Night Football to wrap it up, have some fun. My Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New York Giants tonight. We should be getting some inactive reports fairly soon to see if Sterling Shepard's going to go for the New York Giants. We pretty much know who's in and out on both sides, but that's the only major additive. Maybe he doesn't have a positive workout before the game. He'll sit it out. But how effective can he be as well? Because me and Kyle talk about it all the time. Hey, man, if you're a game-time decision worried about if you can run a pattern before the game, how healthy or effective can you actually be for the football game itself? But as it sits right now, 6 out of every 10 tickets here coming in on the Philadelphia Eagles. Opened up at 5.5, down to 3.5, back up to 4.5, back up to 5s. Some prop bets that I like to look at tonight. Already put one out on Twitter and also added at SBR Sports Picks. My favorite pick of the night is Carson Wentz's touchdowns. He has to throw these, not rushing and throwing just by itself. 1.5 touchdowns to go over -108. I got that at DraftKings a little bit earlier today. And that's just a function of saying, look, if the Philadelphia Eagles are going to score points and expect them to get into the 20s, they're going to have to score at least 2 touchdowns theoretically to get there, minus some whatever field goals that they tack on. But you got Boston Scott in the backfield, Corey Clement in the backfield, no longer with Miles Sanders. You're going to have to be throwing into the end zone to get those points and rack those up. So I love Wentz's touchdown prop, throwing over 1.5. And also a nice little correlated shot here with Ward at wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. A cheap number here, 34.5 receiving yards for Greg Ward. One of those guys who's going to be able to look to hit on 3rd down, 2nd downs, right over the middle, easy dump offs, 8 to 10 yard plays. He gets 3 or 4 catches. He comes down and gets that 34.5 over for the New York Giants, Kyle. I'm looking at Evan Ingram, and why not? Everybody should be looking at the tight end position when you go up against the Philadelphia Eagles because they're going to have a really good pass rush, which means you're going to get pressure on the quarterback. Hey, help me out. Oh, look, my tight end's open over the middle, 7 yards. He should be able to get some running room, and I think that price is cheap for Evan Ingram at 37.5 yards. Also, smaller bets here for me now coming into with Freeman rushing and receiving yards over 75. And then taking a look at a kicking prop I actually really like in this game. Graham Gano, the kicker for the New York Giants, his number is 6.5. That means if he kicks 2 field goals along with 1 extra point, you cash that ticket. I do think the Giants will be able to move the football, but will settle for field goals, and that's going to help that prop. So again, 2 field goals, 1 touchdown. Graham Gano cashes. What are you looking at tonight in this game, Kyle, with some props and maybe a side bet here?
Well, I do have the Carson Wentz over 1.5 touchdowns. I think it's a great point. They're just not going to be running the ball in the red zone, even though they're without Ertz and Goddard and Jeffrey, etc. Still think they have to throw the ball to get in the end zone. So I like Carson Wentz quite a bit over 1.5 touchdowns. Another one I like, we mentioned the pass rush of the Eagles, and Daniel Jones is going to have to be running for his life. So I actually like the over 28.5 rushing yards for Daniel Jones. The leading rusher for the New York Giants is Daniel Jones, if you can believe that. And another one that sort of correlates into that, you have a good Eagles secondary. Even if Shepard comes back, you're going to have Darius Slay shadowing Slayton or Shepard on the outside. I think Devontae Freeman gets involved in the passing game. You can get over 2.5 catches at -130 and over 18.5 receiving yards at -114 over at MyBookie. I think that's a nice prop play for the Giants tonight as well.
Steady stream of over 300 to 350 people watching all throughout the show. And how about this? We usually shut it down at the hour mark. We are 24 minutes of bonus action, and everybody's hanging along with us. Kelsey, by the way, tonight, outside of your +6, which I can't even believe that you are rooting for your +6 for the Giants, but that's another thing. Anything else that you're looking at on this game tonight that we can follow on Thursday Night Football?
For my Giants, I'm agreeing with Kyle and you. Devontae Freeman over 54.5 rushing. And Daniel Jones over 27.5 rushing. I like that.
There you go. I agree.
I only pick my props for the team that I'm rooting for. I'm sorry. It's like a weird thing I do.
Yeah, the fact that you're rooting for the Giants is just astonishing to me right now. But we will root along because money is money. And yes, I would like to see Freeman hit those numbers because if I have that 75 combined rushing and receiving, he's going to have to. Again, they don't have very many outlets. So is he going to get at least, 12 to 13 carries in the game? He should be able to get that. And if the Giants are in a 1-score game, which Las Vegas figures this will be a 1-score game, they are going to be in it right to the end. And Kyle, also piggybacking off your point, when you take a look at the rushing quarterback on a team that's not favored, so theoretically, they're not going to win the game. You don't lose the 5 yards by taking the 3 snaps at the end of the game. That always helps as well. So Daniel Jones should be able to get some running room as well. Well, an hour and 26-minute show on a Thursday football extravaganza right here at sportsbookreview.com. Thank you guys for hanging on. It's a great show. You guys retweet it, you follow it, you come in the chat box and bring that heat each and every Thursday. We do thank you, of course, for Kelsey for joining us today. But it's another wrap on this. We're going to get you ready because we still got Kyle Friday to go over, Saturday to go over, and guess what? We reappear once again at 12 p.m. noon time to set you up for the Sunday football games on the closing line right here at sportsbookreview.com. I'm Donnie Seymour. She's Kelsey Kramer. He's Kyle Purviance. We are sportsbookreview.com, and this was your Thursday NFL football show. Good luck, guys.